The crisp, dry air of the desert safe house hummed with the mechanical rhythm of a portable money counter. It was a low, insistent whir, punctuated by the crisp thwack, thwack, thwack of bundled currency. Dust motes danced in the single shaft of artificial light that pierced the gloom, illuminating stacks of neatly wrapped bills on a scarred metal table. Two figures, obscured by shadow, leaned over the operation. I couldn't make out their faces, only the glint of a heavy ring on one hand as it gestured, and the slow, deliberate nod of the other. The silence of the vast, empty landscape outside seemed to press in, making the small, contained industry within the safe house feel all the more illicit. A secret heartbeat in the desolate expanse. Then the static of a poor connection snapped me back. "Seth? You there?" The voice of the chief investigator crackled through the phone, pulling me away from the mental image I'd just conjured. An occupational hazard of my line of work. My mind often wandered to the unseen players, the architects of the scenes I was called to dissect. "I'm here," I replied, my own voice a low rumble against the hum of the engine as my unmarked vehicle ate up the miles. The landscape outside my window was giving way from urban sprawl to rolling hills, then to dense, ancient woodland. Blackwood Manor. The name itself felt heavy with history, like a tombstone waiting to be read, just clearing the city limits. ETA 45 minutes, maybe less. Good. Don't rush, but let's just say the local authorities are itching to close this one. I understood. An accidental fall at a remote, historically significant estate. Celebrated historian Dr. Alistair Finch, dead at the bottom of a grand staircase. It sounded neat, tidy, and utterly uncomplicated. The kind of case that rarely landed on my desk unless someone, somewhere, had a gut feeling it wasn't. My expertise wasn't in cause of death, not primarily. I was a forensic anthropologist. I read the bones, the soil, the subtle interactions between human remains and their environment. I could tell you not just how someone died, but where they'd been, what they'd eaten, when they'd last moved, and often, who they were, long after the flesh had surrendered its secrets. It was imposing, beautiful in a severe way, and deeply unsettling. A single police cruiser was parked near the main entrance, its emergency lights a muted pulse in the twilight. A burly uniformed officer met me at the heavy oak door, his face grim. Forensic anthropologist, I presume. "Seth?" "That's me," I confirmed, reaching for my field kit in the back of the vehicle. "Where's the chief investigator?" "Inside, sir. They've secured the scene. Haven't touched anything beyond what was absolutely necessary." He led me through a cavernous foyer where a grand, sweeping staircase dominated the space. Finch, the chief investigator, a woman with sharp, intelligent eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, stood by the staircase, speaking quietly with a uniformed colleague. He turned as I approached, a flicker of relief crossing him features. "Seth, glad you're here. This is not what it seems. Or maybe it is, and I'm just paranoid." "Tell me what you have," I requested, already surveying the scene. My eyes swept over the ornate balustrade, the worn treads of the stairs, the velvet runner that had once adorned them now crumpled at the bottom. Victim is Dr. Alistair Finch, 72. Prominent historian, specializing in ancient civilizations. Lived here alone, mostly. He was found by his groundskeeper this morning. Appears to have fallen from the top of the stairs, possibly last night. Initial assessment by the local medical examiner points to blunt force trauma to the head, consistent with impact from the fall. No obvious signs of forced entry, no struggle. She gestured to the chalk outline. Body was moved for initial examination, but we have photos and detailed measurements. I nodded, stepping carefully within the perimeter. I'll need to see the body, of course, and the clothes. But let's start here. I knelt, pulling on a pair of nitrile gloves. My gaze wasn't on the general picture, but on the minute details. The dust on the floorboards, the pattern of the shattered porcelain vase near the outline, the way the light fell. A tiny, iridescent fragment, no larger than a grain of rice, nestled within a hairline crack in the floorboard, just beyond where the victim's head would have been. It wasn't wood, wasn't glass from the vase. It had a faint, ancient patina, unlike anything I'd seen in a modern home. My gloved finger carefully nudged it, revealing a faint, almost microscopic carving. "What is it?" the chief investigator asked, leaning closer. "I don't know yet," I murmured, retrieving a pair of forensic tweezers from my kit. My mind was already racing, categorizing, cross-referencing. This fragment, so small, so out of place, was my first discordant note in the symphony of accidental fall. It felt anachronistic, like a misplaced comma in a perfectly composed sentence. I bagged the fragment, carefully labeling it. My gaze then drifted upward, following the trajectory of the presumed fall. It wasn't the kind of mark a shoe would leave during a simple slip. It was too precise, too deep in one area, almost as if something had been dragged. And then, clinging to a splintered edge of the balustrade, barely visible, was a single fine fiber. Not wool, not cotton. The chief investigator watched me, her earlier skepticism replaced by a growing unease. "You've found something, haven't you?" "Perhaps," I said, my voice low. I carefully collected the fiber. These small things, they speak volumes. And these two, taken together, are starting to tell a different story than a simple accident. My focus sharpened, a determined glint in my eye. Dr. Alistair Finch might have fallen, but I was beginning to suspect he hadn't fallen alone. "Perhaps," I had said, my voice low as I carefully collected the stray fiber. "These small things, they speak volumes." Dr. Alistair Finch might have fallen, but I was beginning to suspect he'd been pushed. The estate's designated study, a large room usually reserved for Finch's historical research, now served as my temporary forensic examination space. The air, thick with the scent of aged paper and dust motes dancing in the afternoon light, felt heavy with unspoken truths. A colleague from the local law enforcement, a burly officer with a perpetually furrowed brow, stood by the doorway, observing my setup. He looked skeptical, his arms crossed over his chest. I ignored him, my attention solely on the draped form on the examination table. "I'll need absolute quiet," I told him, not looking up as I prepared my instruments. Scalpels, forceps, magnifying lenses, and an array of collection vials gleamed under the portable floodlights I'd arranged. And no interruptions. The officer grunted but didn't move. I heard the soft click of his walkie-talkie, then a hushed conversation. He might not believe me, but he knew enough to respect my process. I began my meticulous examination of Finch's remains. The exterior showed the expected trauma of a substantial fall, contusions, abrasions, and the grim indicators of fatal impact. But my work was about what lay beneath the obvious. I started with the cranial vault, carefully assessing the fracture patterns. A large stellate fracture marked the primary impact point, consistent with the trajectory described by the initial reports. Yet, as I cleaned away residual tissue and magnified the bone surface, I found something else. Tiny, almost imperceptible microfractures spiderwebbed across the temporal bone, several millimeters away from the main impact site. They were minute, hairline fissures, distinct from the larger trauma. These weren't secondary fractures from the primary impact. Their morphology suggested a different vector of force, a localized, concentrated blow before the fall. My breath hitched. This wasn't a simple tumble down a set of stairs. Someone had struck him. My internal monologue raced. A blow to the side of the head, perhaps with a blunt object, disorienting him, leading to the fall. The smallness of the fractures suggested a precise, almost surgical application of force, or perhaps a struggle where he hit something before the final plunge. The detective's earlier assessment of a tragic accident now felt flimsy, a thin veil over a much darker act. I carefully photographed the microfractures, using a macro lens to capture every detail. Each image was a silent accusation. This was not an accident. This was violence. Next, I turned my attention to Finch's clothing. His tweed jacket, though torn and dirt-stained from the fall, still held secrets. I systematically brushed and vacuumed every square inch, collecting minute particles into separate sterile containers. The process was painstaking, requiring an almost meditative focus. Lint, threads, dust, most of it mundane, easily dismissed as environmental contamination from the estate. Then, under the microscope, I saw them. Specks of an unusual substance, clinging stubbornly to the fibers of his trousers, particularly around the cuffs and pockets. They were granular, almost crystalline, with a faint, iridescent sheen. They certainly didn't look like garden soil or plaster dust from the manor walls. I isolated a cluster of these particles on a glass slide. Under higher magnification, their structure was distinct. Angular, stratified, with a reddish-brown hue shot through with glimmering quartz. My mind immediately started cycling through geological possibilities. This wasn't native to the rich, loamy soil of the estate grounds, nor the limestone and granite common in the region's architecture. This was something else entirely. I performed a quick rudimentary field test, applying a drop of dilute acid. A faint effervescence, a reaction consistent with certain silicates and carbonates. My knowledge of mineralogy, honed over years of analyzing soil samples from various crime scenes, clicked into place. This specific composition, the angularity, the color palette, it pointed unequivocally to a desert environment. Not just any desert, but one with specific geological strata, rich in iron oxides and crystalline aggregates. My gaze snapped up from the microscope, meeting the skeptical eyes of the officer. He wasn't just here, I stated, my voice cutting through the quiet. Dr. Finch was somewhere else, very recently. The officer shifted, his brow deepening. Somewhere else? Where? I didn't answer immediately. My thoughts were already moving beyond the manor. This unique mineral dust was a breadcrumb trail, leading away from the verdant estate and into a stark, arid landscape. Finch, a historian of ancient cultures, had a knack for uncovering forgotten things. Had he uncovered something that led him to such a place? My hand instinctively went to my kit, pulling out a small, specialized device, a signal detector I sometimes used for electronic trace evidence. It wasn't standard forensic gear, but my work often intersected with the unconventional. I swept it over Finch's jacket, then his pockets. Nothing. I moved to his belt, then his shoes. Still nothing. My frustration mounted. The dust was a powerful clue, but it felt isolated. Then, as I ran the detector over the inner lining of his tweed jacket near the left lapel, a faint rhythmic pulse registered. It was almost imperceptible, hidden beneath the general electromagnetic noise of the old house. I carefully peeled back the lining. It was expertly concealed, clearly not factory installed. I extracted it with tweezers, my fingers trembling slightly with anticipation. Connecting it to a portable analyzer from my kit, I bypassed any security protocols. A single audio file appeared. I pressed play, my colleague leaning in slightly, his skepticism momentarily forgotten. Static at first, then a low hum, a mechanical rhythm. It wasn't the whir of an antique clock or the groan of the old house. It was sharper, more insistent, and then unmistakable, overlaid on the hum, the crisp, rapid thwack, thwack, thwack of paper being counted. The audio file was short, only 30 seconds, but it painted a vivid, chilling picture. And then, a man's voice, muffled but distinct, speaking in clipped, urgent tones. Not Finch's voice. My mind pieced it together instantly. The desert dust, the hidden recorder, the sound of illicit transactions. The location of the recording wasn't explicit, but the context was undeniable. Somewhere remote, somewhere clandestine. I pictured it then, a stark, isolated structure against a backdrop of endless dunes. I pictured a specific type of place. A bolt hole, an operational hub. The detective's accident had just become a conspiracy, and I, Seth, was standing at its dusty threshold. The mineral dust, a whisper of a world far removed from the manicured lawns of the estate, became my immediate focus. I sealed the tiny sample in a sterile vial, the iridescent flecks catching the artificial light of my portable lab kit. The local authorities, still bogged down in the minutiae of a tragic accident, wouldn't have the specialized equipment nor the inclination to delve into such an obscure detail. I needed an independent analysis, and I knew just the place. The drive to the outskirts of the city was a blur of highway and rising tension. My contact, a retired geologist named Silas who operated a clandestine analytical service out of a repurposed industrial unit, was waiting. The air inside his workshop hummed with the low thrum of machinery and the faint scent of ozone. Silas, a man whose hands were permanently stained with the Earth's secrets, took the vial without a word, his gaze sharp and assessing. "Give me an hour," he grunted, already turning towards a complex mass of spectrographs and electron microscopes. I paced, the hum of the instruments a counterpoint to the insistent rhythm of my thoughts. Finch, his meticulous notes, his recent clandestine trips, the way he'd grown increasingly withdrawn. It all coalesced around this microscopic evidence. An hour later, Silas emerged, wiping his hands on a grease-stained rag. "Feldspar, mostly," he began, his voice raspy. But not just any feldspar. This particular composition, with these trace elements, it's consistent with a very specific geological formation. He was found primarily in a remote stretch of the Anza Borrego Badlands. Anza Borrego, a stark, arid landscape miles from the Verdant estate. And Finch, a historian of ancient cultures, had been making increasingly frequent, unrecorded trips to that very region. He'd spoken vaguely of geophysical surveys and unconventional archaeological prospects. Prospects that, I now realized, were far beyond the scope of his academic funding or official permits. The breadcrumb trail wasn't just leading away from the manor. It was pointing directly to an unsanctioned dig. My investigation shifted gears, away from the immediate scene and into the murky waters of Finch's recent activities. I scoured his digital footprint, not his public one, but the ghost trails, the encrypted emails, the discarded project files I'd managed to extract from his personal server. One name kept resurfacing. A research assistant, now estranged, named Lena. Her last known contact with Finch was a terse, emotionally charged email chain about reckless endangerment and unethical practices. Locating Lena wasn't easy. She'd scrubbed her public presence clean, but old university records, cross-referenced with recent financial transactions, eventually led me to a remote corner of the desert, far beyond the paved roads. The landscape was desolate, stretching out under a relentless sun, all ochre rock and sparse, tenacious scrub. I followed a barely discernible track for what felt like hours, the dust plume behind my rental SUV the only sign of my presence. Finally, tucked into the lee of a weathered mesa, I spotted it. A low, utilitarian structure, blending almost perfectly with the parched earth. The sound, a crisp, rhythmic thwack, 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 was unmistakable, cutting through the vast silence of the wilderness. I killed the engine, the sudden quiet deafening. The safe house looked less like a home and more like an operational base. No windows on the ground floor, just a heavy, reinforced door. I approached cautiously, my hand resting instinctively on the concealed blade I always carried. The money counter's insistent rhythm pulsed through the thin metal of the door. I knocked. The sound felt absurdly loud in the emptiness. The humming stopped abruptly. The door opened a crack, revealing Lena's wary face. Specifically what he found in Anza Borrego. She hesitated, glancing back into the dim interior of the safe house. I could see stacks of bundled currency on a table, partially obscured by a tarp. Her involvement with whatever was going on here was clearly more than just academic. convinced he was on the verge of uncovering something monumental. A lost artifact, he called it. Something that could rewrite history. "What kind of artifact?" I pressed, stepping closer, forcing her to open the door wider. The air inside was cool, dry, and carried a faint metallic tang. She wrung her hands, her eyes darting nervously. He wouldn't say precisely, just that it was tied to an ancient, forgotten civilization, and that certain parties were very interested in keeping it buried. He started having these hushed meetings, always late at night, with people I never saw clearly, never heard names. Said they were guardians, not of history, but of secrets. He believed they wanted to control the narrative, to ensure this artifact, whatever it was, never saw the light of day. He even mentioned a trade, ancient relics for something else, something valuable. The money counter sat silently on the table, a stark testament to the valuable something else. Finch wasn't just researching, he was trafficking, or had stumbled into a trafficking operation. The mineral dust, the unsanctioned dig, the estranged assistant, the secret meetings, the lost artifact, the money. Finch hadn't just uncovered forgotten things. He'd unearthed a dangerous truth, one that someone was willing to kill to keep buried. And now I was standing directly in its path. Finch wasn't just an academic. He was neck-deep in something illicit, something that paid handsomely. The mineral dust, the unsanctioned dig, the estranged assistant, the hushed meetings. It all coalesced into a picture far darker than I'd initially conceived. Finch hadn't simply stumbled into a tragic fall. He'd been pulled into a vortex of greed and ancient secrets. My vehicle kicked up plumes of ochre dust as I navigated the winding, unpaved track toward the official dig site. Finch's notes had detailed the area's archaeological significance, a pre-Columbian settlement known for its unique pottery and agricultural innovations. But my focus wasn't on established history. It was on the gaps, the anomalies. When I finally reached the site, the official excavation was a neat grid of trenches and labeled markers, covered now with tarpaulins against the elements. But off to the west, beyond the designated boundaries, I spotted it. A stretch of recently disturbed earth, less meticulously handled, almost carelessly concealed. The faint glint of a discarded plastic water bottle, not one of the official issue reusable canteens, caught my eye. This wasn't part of the university-sanctioned operation. I parked and approached cautiously, my boots crunching on loose gravel. I knelt, sifting through the loose earth with my gloved hands. There were no obvious tools, no abandoned shovels, but the pattern of disturbance suggested a hasty, recent operation. Then, my fingers brushed against something hard, irregular. I pulled it free, wiping away the clinging dirt. It was a shard of pottery, no larger than my thumb. Its surface was smooth, almost polished, a deep obsidian black, unlike the rough, ochre-toned earthenware typical of the region's known cultures. The glaze, if it could be called that, had a metallic sheen, catching the sunlight with an unusual luster. I turned it over in my palm. This wasn't pre-Columbian. It wasn't even from this continent. The craftsmanship, the composition, even the faint, almost imperceptible geometric etching on one edge, it screamed anachronism. A fragment of something from a distant land, a different era, unearthed here in the middle of nowhere. This was the lost artifact Finch had been so obsessed with, or at least a piece of it. This was the reveal. A pickup truck, caked in desert grime, rumbled to a halt a few yards away. The local enforcement officer, a gruff individual whose badge glinted on his chest, stepped out, his expression a thundercloud. "Still digging, anthropologist?" he drawled, his voice thick with impatience. "I thought we made it clear. The official report is in. Accidental fall, case closed." "I found something," I stated, holding up the pottery shard. "Something that doesn't fit." He squinted at the fragment, then waved a dismissive hand. "Another rock, Seth. This isn't a museum. People fall. It's tragic, but it happens. My superiors are getting calls from their superiors. This investigation is costing resources and drawing unwanted attention. Pack it up. Unwanted attention from whom? I pressed, my gaze unwavering. And if this is just an accidental fall, why are there signs of an unsanctioned dig right next to a protected site? His jaw tightened. That's speculation. Could be anything. Tourists, prospectors, it's a big desert. Now I suggest you take your trinkets and go process your paperwork. We're done here. His tone left no room for debate, but the underlying pressure was palpable. Someone higher up wanted this buried and fast. The official resistance only fueled my conviction. This wasn't merely a cover-up. It was an active suppression. Finch had stumbled onto something far bigger than a simple artifact trade. Back in my forensic lab, the cool, sterile air was a welcome change from the desert heat. I laid the pottery fragment carefully on my examination table, eager to begin analyzing its composition. But as I reached for my microscope, a subtle discrepancy caught my eye. The heavy-duty padlock on my lab door, usually snug in its hasp, was slightly ajar. A thin, almost invisible scratch marred the polished brass. I moved through the lab with slow, deliberate steps, my senses hyper-alert. Nothing was obviously missing. My expensive spectrometry equipment stood undisturbed. The specimen refrigerators were still humming. The secure evidence locker remained locked, its heavy steel door unbreached. But then I saw it. The slight misalignment of a stack of files on my desk. The faint impression of a shoe print on the dust-free linoleum just beside the floor vent. Someone had been here. They hadn't taken anything valuable, not in the monetary sense. They hadn't ransacked the place. They had searched. And they knew exactly what they were looking for, or rather, what they wanted to ensure I didn't find. They knew I was closing in, and they wanted me to know that they knew. The game had just escalated. It was a temporary base, a place of last resort I'd secured through a contact after the detective's dismissive glare. The air was thick with dust and the faint metallic scent of the counting machine, an odor that always reminded me of transactions best left in the shadows. I leaned over the pottery fragment, the very trinket the detective had scoffed at. Under my portable microscope, its surface revealed a tapestry of intentional deceit. I'd spent hours meticulously scraping and testing, comparing its mineral composition against known archaeological samples from the region. The clay itself was a near-perfect match, sourced from local deposits. The firing temperature, deduced from the microscopic vitrification patterns, was also consistent with ancient techniques. But then came the discrepancies, subtle at first, then glaring. The patina, that natural film of age, was too uniform, too perfect. Ancient artifacts accumulate layers unevenly, depending on exposure, burial conditions, chemical reactions over millennia. This one had been applied with a master's touch, a chemical bath designed to mimic the exact coloration and texture of specific historical periods. Worse still, the microscopic inclusions, tiny grains of sand, flecks of mica, were wrong. They belonged to a different geological stratum than the clay itself, a mismatch that no natural process could explain. Someone had deliberately added them, perhaps to give the clay a certain texture or visual appeal, not realizing it would betray the piece under forensic scrutiny. My breath hitched. This was a sophisticated, painstakingly crafted forgery. The initial anachronistic details I'd noted at the estate, the ones I couldn't reconcile with a simple accident or even a careless burial, suddenly coalesced into a terrifying clarity. They weren't anomalies. They were deliberate missteps, the signature of a skilled artisan attempting to replicate the past while inadvertently leaving breadcrumbs for someone like me. Finch hadn't been researching the history of artifacts. He'd been investigating a high-stakes forgery ring. The pieces he'd acquired, the ones he was so secretive about, weren't genuine relics of a forgotten civilization. They were elaborate fakes, designed to deceive, to rewrite history through manufactured evidence. And if the detective was so keen to bury my findings, it meant this conspiracy ran deeper, perhaps touching institutions or individuals I couldn't yet fathom. The stakes had just skyrocketed from a simple murder investigation to something far more dangerous. I knew I couldn't simply present my findings to the authorities. Not yet. Not with the detective's clear intention to suppress the truth. I needed more. Finch's study. I remembered the meticulous order, the hidden depths I'd sensed beneath its academic veneer. Under the cover of the pre-dawn gloom, I returned to the estate. The security, lax even after a suspicious death, was now almost non-existent, a testament to the detective's confidence that I was out of the picture. I moved like a ghost through the silent halls, the old floorboards groaning under my cautious weight. The study door, previously sealed, was now merely latched, an oversight or a deliberate invitation for a cleanup crew. I bypassed the obvious places, the desk drawers, the filing cabinets. Finch was too clever for that. My eyes scanned the room, searching for any disruption in the otherwise perfect symmetry. A faint scuff mark on the baseboard near a tall, leather-bound bookcase. Almost imperceptible, but my forensic training had conditioned me to see the unseen. I ran my fingers along the spines of the books, then along the wooden paneling behind them. One section felt slightly different, a subtle give where there should have been none. With careful precision, I pressed. Inside, nestled amongst velvet lining, were two items. A ruggedized data drive, its surface scuffed but intact, and a rolled parchment, brittle with age. I pulled them out, my fingers trembling slightly. The data drive, I surmised, held the encrypted files Finch had been compiling, his true research. But it was the parchment that captured my immediate attention. I carefully unrolled it. It was a map, hand-drawn on what appeared to be ancient animal skin, but overlaid with modern, almost cryptic symbols and annotations in Finch's distinctive hand. Lines intersected, forming patterns that didn't correspond to any known geographical features. Numbers and letters were scattered across the desert landscape, seemingly random, yet too precise to be accidental. It was a coded map, a key to something Finch had been tracking, something vital to this burgeoning conspiracy. I tucked the drive and the map into my satchel. The air in the study felt heavy, charged with the ghosts of Finch's discoveries. He wasn't just exposing a forgery ring. He was tracking its operations, its supply lines, perhaps even its ultimate beneficiaries. And he'd paid the ultimate price for it. The detective's obstruction, the anachronistic forgery, this hidden compartment. It all pointed to a network far more insidious than I had imagined. I was no longer just investigating a death. I was unearthing a legacy of deception, and I was now holding the very clues that had cost Finch his life. I had crossed a line, and there was no turning back. Outside, the sun had long since dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in a final bruised purple before surrendering to the ink black of night. Inside, under the stark glare of a single LED lantern, my world was reduced to the glow of a laptop screen and the intricate patterns of a folded, ancient-looking map spread across the battered metal table. My fingers, still stained faintly with the ochre dust of the estate, danced across the keyboard. It wasn't a simple cipher. This was a cartographic puzzle, a forensic challenge designed to confound any casual observer. My expertise wasn't just in bones, but in the subtle languages of the past, the way ancient societies communicated, the symbols they used, the hidden meanings embedded in their artifacts. I'd started by cross-referencing its geographical markers with satellite imagery and historical surveys, looking for discrepancies, anachronisms in the data itself. The lines weren't just contour lines. Some represented pathways, others, almost imperceptibly, denoted boundaries or even routes. The small, seemingly decorative flourishes at the corners were the key. Using a specialized imaging program, I digitally enhanced the faded ink, adjusting spectral analysis until faint, almost invisible glyphs began to emerge from the background noise. Each glyph, when deciphered, corresponded to a coordinate, a date, or a name, not of a person, but of a specific type of material or object. The map wasn't just a place. It was a supply chain, a logistics diagram spanning centuries. My breath hitched as a pattern solidified on the screen, a web of interconnected points stretching from obscure coastal towns to the hidden vaults of European capitals. It wasn't just a single illicit transaction. This was a vast, enduring network. I saw markers for rare earth elements, for specific types of stone, for ancient manuscripts. The provenance of the materials, the subtle alterations. It all started to make a terrifying kind of sense. Next, I turned to the encrypted files, a digital hoard extracted from the historian's hidden drive. These were far more robust, protected by layers of cryptographic algorithms that spoke of professional state-level security. I'd spent the last few hours in a silent battle against the code, my determination fueled by the desert's oppressive quiet and the gravity of what I suspected. My forensic decryption toolkit, a suite of specialized software I'd developed over years, chipped away at the layers. It wasn't about brute force. It was about finding the human element, the patterns in the encryption choices, the tells in the digital dust. The first breakthrough came as a cascade of text, a document titled The Covenant. It wasn't about money alone. It spoke of the legacy, not as a collection of objects, but as a philosophy, a creed passed down through generations. I scrolled further, my fingers tight on the trackpad. The files detailed elaborate strategies for acquiring genuine artifacts, not for their market value, but for their historical significance. They weren't just forging, they were replacing. Fabricating copies so perfect they could fool even expert eyes, then substituting them for the originals, which were then spirited away into the hidden network of the keepers. The goal wasn't merely illicit trade. It was the manipulation of historical narratives, the control over what was remembered and what was forgotten. The genuine artifacts, the ones that perhaps contradicted their legacy, were being hoarded, hidden, or subtly altered to fit a predetermined version of the past. The historian at the estate hadn't just stumbled upon a forgery ring. He'd uncovered a clandestine operation that sought to control the very fabric of human understanding. And he had paid the ultimate price for that knowledge. I leaned back, my gaze fixed on the glowing screen, the weight of the legacy and the keepers settling heavily upon me. My initial investigation had been a forensic puzzle, but now it was a dangerous game against an enemy I was only just beginning to understand. The tension in the small safe house was palpable, a silent scream against the vast, indifferent desert night. The stack of bills, neatly bundled and marked with faint, unfamiliar insignias, sat beside the machine. My fingers traced the rough texture of the paper, a tangible link to the danger I'd stumbled into. I leaned back in the worn armchair, the desert night pressing against the single reinforced window. The money wasn't just a payoff, it was a declaration, a warning. And it confirmed that the forces at play were far more organized, far more powerful than I'd initially imagined. Dr. Finch's death, the staged fall, the unique mineral dust, they weren't isolated anomalies. They were threads in a much larger tapestry, woven with intent and malice. The mineral dust. That was my anchor. My initial analysis had pegged it as a complex silicate, rich in rare earth elements, but its specific composition was unlike anything commonly found. It was a signature, a geographical fingerprint. I'd spent hours cross-referencing geological databases, sifting through obscure academic papers, and correlating the data with historical excavation sites. The results were tantalizingly vague, pointing to a few remote, historically significant regions, but nothing definitive enough to act on. What I needed was context. Someone who understood the shadowy corners of the archaeological world. Someone who knew Dr. Finch well enough to recognize the signs of a deeper struggle. My mind went to the retired curator, an imposing figure from my own academic past who had once mentored Dr. Finch. He was a man of immense knowledge, known for his discretion and his uncanny ability to sniff out fakes and forgeries, but also for his reluctance to involve himself in anything overtly political. He'd always kept a careful distance from the controversies that plagued the discipline. It took me the better part of a day to track him down. He lived in a quiet coastal town, his residence a modest bungalow overlooking the choppy gray expanse of the ocean. The air there was thick with the scent of salt and damp earth, a stark contrast to the dry, metallic tang of the desert. I found him in his garden, meticulously pruning a gnarled rose bush, his movements slow but precise. His face, a network of deep wrinkles, held the gravitas of ancient stone. "Seth," he said, his voice a low rumble devoid of surprise. "Finch." He straightened, laying his shears carefully on a stone bench. Finch. A tragic end. I always warned him about his enthusiasms. His eyes, sharp and intelligent, met mine. What kind of help? I decided to be direct, but cautious. His death wasn't an accident. I found evidence of specific mineral dust at the scene, anachronistic details on the remains, things that point to a deliberate staging and a deeper agenda. I watched his face for any flicker of recognition. He led me inside to a sun-drenched study filled with books and the scent of old paper. The tension in the room thickened, palpable as the dust motes dancing in the sunlight. You speak of an agenda. You're not the first to suspect one. There are. Finch's papers. His eyes widened almost imperceptibly, a momentary crack in his composed facade. Or you found something. I had hoped he was more discreet. He sighed, a sound heavy with resignation. Yes, the keepers. They are not a myth, Seth. They are very real. An ancient society formed centuries ago, ostensibly to preserve history. But their preservation is more akin to control. They manipulate archaeological finds, suppress discoveries that contradict their narrative, and, most importantly, control the flow of certain invaluable artifacts. For what purpose? I pressed, my heart thrumming a little faster. The pieces were starting to slot into place, forming a terrifying mosaic. Political influence, financial gain. They have an interest in very specific types of ancient relics, often those with unique material compositions or unusual properties. Like the mineral dust I found? I prompted, laying out a small, sealed sample bag on his desk, careful not to touch it. A complex silicate, rich in rare earth elements. He was found on the victim and at the scene, inconsistent with the local geology of the estate. He picked up the bag, his brow furrowed, his expression unreadable. He held it to the light, then slowly set it down. His eyes met mine, now filled with a grim certainty. This is a signature. Not of a specific site, perhaps, but of a particular type of excavation. One they are very, very interested in. This kind of material. It aligns with certain deposits known to be found in the vicinity of the Blackwood estate. A very remote, very private property, owned by a reclusive collector. The Blackwood estate. The very place where Dr. Finch had been working, where he had died. It was all connected. The dust, the artifacts, the keepers, and Dr. Finch's fatal fall. The curator's revelation solidified my worst fears, replacing lingering doubt with a stark, terrifying clarity. I sat hunched over a crude map spread across a rickety table, the single bare bulb above casting harsh shadows. This desert safe house, a relic from some forgotten smuggling operation, was my temporary base. The humming machine belonged to the contact who'd provided the map and a few key intel points. A necessary evil, his presence a constant reminder of the murky world I was now navigating. My backpack, heavy with specialized tools, rested beside my chair. The curator's confession, echoing the name Blackwood Estate, had solidified my purpose. Elias Thorne, the prominent industrialist, the collector, the man whose name now resonated with a sinister undertone. He held the key to the illicit trade, to the keepers, and to Dr. Finch's demise. The estate sprawled across a secluded valley, a fortress of stone and steel camouflaged by ancient trees and sophisticated landscaping. I'd spent the last few hours observing its perimeter from a distant ridge, noting the patterns of the external patrols. 3 guards, rotating every 30 minutes, their paths predictable. Thorne hadn't skimped on protection. Good. It meant he had something worth protecting. Under the cloak of a moonless night, I moved. The desert chill bit through my tactical gear, a sharp contrast to the safe house's stuffy air. I navigated the outer fence line, a 10-foot barrier topped with razor wire, easily bypassed with insulated cutters and a climbing hook. My boots made no sound on the manicured gravel paths. My target was the West Wing, a sprawling addition I'd learned was rarely used for guests. A service entrance nestled behind a dense cypress hedge offered the most promising breach point. The lock was a high-security electronic model, but my bypass tools were designed for exactly this kind of challenge. The interior was a labyrinth of polished stone and hushed opulence. My small, pen-light beam cut through the gloom, highlighting intricate tapestries and antique furnishings. I moved with a practiced fluidity, my senses on high alert, scanning for motion sensors, pressure plates, and concealed cameras. Each breath was shallow, each step deliberate. I was looking for the anachronisms, the discrepancies that had plagued me since Dr. Finch's remains. My search led me deeper into the estate's bowels, past storage rooms filled with crates of art supplies and scientific equipment, until a faint, acrid scent reached me. Paint thinner, solvents, and something else. A metallic tang I couldn't quite place. It grew stronger as I approached a heavy oak door, slightly ajar. A faint glow emanated from within. I eased the door open. The room was a symphony of illicit craft. It was a state-of-the-art forgery workshop. Workbenches lined the walls, laden with miniature carving tools, microscopes, and vats of chemical solutions. Partially finished pieces lay scattered. A Roman coin with suspiciously crisp edges, a clay tablet bearing cuneiform script that seemed too perfect, a small bronze figurine undergoing an artificial aging process. I picked up a small brush, still wet with an ochre pigment, the bristles fine enough to paint individual sand grains. The air was thick with the faint hum of a ventilation system and the cloying smell of chemicals. This was where the anachronisms were born, where history was rewritten for profit. But this wasn't Thorne's ultimate secret. The sheer volume of material here suggested a major operation, but it was all replicas. I needed the genuine articles. My eyes scanned the workshop, searching for anything out of place. A loose floorboard? A hidden panel? My gaze settled on a large, intricately carved wooden cabinet against the far wall, its design more ornate than anything else in the room. It seemed out of place, too grand for a workshop. I ran my gloved hand over its surface, my fingers tracing the ornate carvings. Behind one of the larger rosettes, a faint seam became apparent. Not a hinge, but a meticulously disguised access panel. My tools made quick work of the mechanism. The cabinet swung inward, revealing not shelves, but a reinforced steel door, a heavy vault. This was it. The vault's locking mechanism was complex, a digital keypad combined with a biometric scanner. I bypassed the keypad with a series of precise electrical pulses, then used a specialized gel to lift a latent fingerprint from the scanner's surface, applying it to my own gloved finger. A soft thunk, and the heavy door eased open. The air inside was cool, dry, and still. My pen light swept across rows of climate-controlled display cases and archival shelves. This wasn't just a collection. It was a museum of stolen history. Priceless artifacts, genuine and untouched by the forger's hand, lay before me. Sumerian tablets, Egyptian funerary masks, Greek pottery, pre-Columbian gold figurines. Finch had hinted at, plundered, and erased. The sheer scale of the theft was staggering. This wasn't just about selling fakes. It was about hoarding the real thing, controlling the narrative of the past. A pressure plate. I'd missed it. Thorne's advanced security systems had found me. An alarm, low and guttural, began to throb through the stone walls, growing in intensity. Footsteps, heavy and urgent, thudded in the corridor outside the workshop. I slammed the vault door shut, hoping the sound would confuse my pursuers, then scrambled back into the workshop. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the rising alarm. I heard shouts now, closer. Intruder in the west wing, seal all exits. No time for finesse. I kicked over a workbench, sending tools and half-finished forgeries clattering to the floor, hoping to create a momentary diversion. I burst out of the workshop, not back the way I came, but deeper into the estate, heading for a section I'd noted on the map, a rarely used loading bay that led to an underground service tunnel. I ducked into a side passage, pressing myself against the cold stone, listening to their shouts. 2 guards, then 3. Their voices were harsh, amplified by the echoing hallways. I reached the loading bay, a cavernous space filled with empty crates. The heavy steel door leading to the service tunnel was locked. I fumbled for my tools, my fingers slick with sweat. The alarm blared, a constant shriek that grated on my nerves. I heard the guards entering the loading bay, their heavy boots scraping on the concrete. "He's in here. Don't let him reach the tunnel." The lock clicked open just as the first guard rounded a stack of crates, his flashlight beam catching me. I ran, adrenaline coursing, the image of those stolen artifacts burned into my mind. I had the proof. Now I just had to survive to use it. My lungs burned, but the echo of the gunshot was a relentless prod, driving me forward through the absolute black. I stumbled out, gasping, into a small subterranean chamber obscured by shadow, was already there, holding a satellite phone to an ear. The figure said into the phone, then nodded towards a sturdy metal table laden with a tactical backpack and a laptop. Everything you asked for. I didn't waste time on pleasantries. My hands, still trembling slightly from the escape, moved with practiced efficiency, unzipping the pockets of my field vest, pulling out the evidence I'd risked everything to collect. The small plastic bags containing soil samples, the meticulously labeled swabs of fibers, the memory card from my camera, each piece a silent witness, now waiting to speak. The desert safe house was Spartan, functional. Bare concrete walls, a single powerful lamp illuminating the work surface, and the persistent rhythmic whir of the money counter adding a strange, urgent rhythm to the silence. My contact, a man of few words and quick movements, placed a bottle of water beside me, then retreated to a far corner, leaving me to my grim task. I plugged my camera's memory card into the laptop. The screen flickered to life, displaying a cascade of images. The peculiar tool marks on the ancient stone fragments, the subtle discoloration beneath the historian Finch's fingernails, the unique weave of the fabric fibers snagged on a sharp edge of the estate's crumbling wall. My fingers flew across the keyboard, organizing, cross-referencing. I zoomed in on the soil samples I'd collected from the base of the historian Finch's alleged fall. Under a portable digital microscope, the granular structure was distinct, unlike anything naturally occurring at the estate. It was a specific composition, rich in minerals not indigenous to the region, indicating it had been imported. A direct match. The soil wasn't just anachronistic, it was diagnostic. Next, the fibers. I'd found a microscopic thread of a synthetic polymer on Finch's jacket, clinging to the lapel. It wasn't wool, not cotton, not silk. It was a modern, high-performance material, almost certainly from the kind of specialized outdoor gear a man like Thorne, with his taste for rugged exploration, would wear. I pulled up the corresponding photograph. The angle, the direction of the scuff, it was consistent with a struggle, a forceful push rather than an accidental slip. The tension in the room was a palpable weight, pressing down on me. Every click of the mouse, every tap of a key felt amplified. I was building a case not just against a man, but against a legacy, a network of powerful individuals who had clearly demonstrated a willingness to kill to protect their secrets. I brought up the photographs of the artifacts themselves. The ornate dagger, the fragmented tablet. The provenance was a tangled web of lies, but the telltale signs of recent crude excavation were undeniable. The pristine condition of some pieces, contrasting sharply with the damage inflicted by careless removal, spoke volumes. Thorne, the esteemed historian, was not preserving history. He was plundering it, and Finch had been his inconvenient conscience. My mind raced, connecting the dots. The anachronistic details I'd first noticed at the scene weren't isolated incidents. They were fingerprints. The non-native soil, the modern fiber, the specific tool marks on the retrieved fragments, all pointed to Thorne. The tragic fall was a meticulously staged cover-up. Finch, a man dedicated to historical truth, had stumbled upon their operations, perhaps even identified the source of their unearthing activities, and Thorne had been the instrument of his demise. And Finch had threatened to expose it all. I leaned back, exhaling slowly. The laptop screen glowed, a comprehensive dossier of evidence staring back at me. Photographs, chemical analyses of soil composition, fiber comparisons, detailed reports of tool marks, and a timeline of events that rendered Thorne's alibi and the official narrative utterly implausible. It was unassailable. But presenting it was another matter entirely. The local police force, clearly compromised, would be a hostile audience. I had to assume they were already looking for me, labeled a rogue element, perhaps even the prime suspect in Finch's death. My life was no longer just at risk. It was hanging by a thread. I had exposed a truth that powerful people wanted buried. The next step, the delivery of this truth, would be the most dangerous of all. I was ready. It was a sterile sound, oddly out of place against the grit-laden air that seeped in through the makeshift ventilation. My hands, still bearing the faint tremor of adrenaline from my hasty exit, moved methodically, unzipping the pockets of my field vest. I pulled out the small plastic bags containing soil samples, the meticulously labeled swabs, each a silent testament to a truth deliberately buried. I laid them out on a collapsible aluminum table, illuminated by the single bare bulb hanging precariously overhead. The dust motes danced in its harsh glow, a microscopic blizzard reflecting the chaos that had become my world. My gaze lingered on the minute, almost imperceptible flecks within one particular soil sample. A unique geological signature I'd found clinging to the sole of Dr. Finch's boot. It was the crucial anachronism, the detail that had screamed foul play louder than any blunt force trauma. This wasn't merely soil from the manor grounds. It was a specific blend, found only in the region of the ancient quarry Thorne had been illegally excavating. Dr. Finch hadn't just fallen. He'd been silenced because he'd found something there, something that threatened Thorne's entire operation. I had one contact left, a seasoned investigator from the Cultural Heritage Division, known for his relentless pursuit of artifact traffickers. He was a long shot, but he was clean. Thorne, I knew, had eyes and ears everywhere. But this investigator worked outside the usual channels, a lone wolf in a field rife with corruption. I have him, I stated, my voice tight with a determination that masked the exhaustion gnawing at my bones. Thorne, and the keepers, those details were for later, or never. I explained the forensic link, the specific soil, the anachronistic wear on the artifacts. I need an extraction team, quiet, discreet. And I need to confront Thorne. I have a plan to draw him out. The investigator's voice was gravelly, cautious. Seth, you're walking into a hornet's nest. He'll know you're coming. He won't know how, I countered, a grim smile touching my lips. I'll give him a reason to come to me. The estate. It's where it started. It's where it ends. My plan was simple, audacious, and inherently dangerous. I would leverage Thorne's greed and paranoia. I had a small, anonymous package of information prepared. A partial leak, implying that a rival collector was about to expose Thorne's latest acquisition, a piece I knew he held in high regard, hidden within the manor. The leak would suggest the rival was sending a team to secure the artifact, forcing Thorne to return and protect his prize. Hours later, the sun a fiery disk barely clearing the horizon, I was back at the estate. The air was cool, carrying the scent of damp earth and ancient stone. My field kit was lighter now, most of the crucial evidence carefully secured with the investigators' hidden team, who were now positioned covertly around the perimeter waiting for my signal. I kept only a few key pieces, just enough to bait my trap. I chose the Grand Hall, the very space where Dr. Finch's accident had been staged. It was a beacon for a man like Thorne, a lure he couldn't resist. The crunch of tires on the gravel outside was my cue. A black sedan, sleek and predatory, pulled up to the main entrance. Thorne emerged, flanked by two formidable figures, their suits too sharp, their eyes too hard. He moved with an arrogant confidence, his gaze sweeping the grounds, then the manor's entrance. His expression, usually composed, held a flicker of something close to anger, tightly reined in. My partial leak had worked. I stepped out from behind a heavy velvet curtain, my silhouette stark against the rising sun. "Thorne," I greeted, my voice steady despite the adrenaline now coursing through my veins. "Fancy meeting you here." His eyes narrowed, a predatory glint replacing the anger. "Seth, I should have known you wouldn't stay buried." He took a slow, deliberate step into the hall, his gaze scanning the room, landing briefly on the ceramic shard. A subtle twitch in his jaw confirmed he'd seen it. "What is this?" "Finch, for every truth you've twisted and every legacy you've plundered." I gestured to the mantelpiece. "That's just a taste, Thorne. A fragment of what Dr. Finch found, what he died trying to expose. He wasn't just investigating your anachronistic artifacts, was he? He was at the quarry. He found your source. The illicit trade, the desecration of history, it all comes back to you." Thorne scoffed, but his eyes darted to his enforcers, a silent command passing between them. "You have nothing, forensic man. A few old bones, some dirt, easily explained away." "The dirt, Thorne," I pressed, stepping forward, my eyes locked on his. "That's where you made your mistake. The specific soil composition from the quarry, found on Dr. Finch's boots. It's unique. It's a fingerprint. And I have samples from your latest acquisition, the Roman sculpture, that match it perfectly." He knew. He understood the implications of my words. This legacy is too vast, too deeply rooted. I held his gaze, a small, knowing smile playing on my lips. "Perhaps. But it's about to be unearthed, Thorne. Piece by piece." My hand subtly tightened on the small, hidden device in my pocket. The signal was sent. The trap was sprung. Thorne lunged, a sudden, desperate surge of violence in his eyes. His enforcers closed in, their movements swift and practiced. The Grand Hall, once a quiet testament to history, became a stage for a very modern, very dangerous confrontation. But so was the evidence. My instincts, honed by years of sifting through the echoes of violence, took over. I twisted, using his momentum against him, a low, guttural grunt escaping his lips as his shoulders slammed into the concrete wall instead of my chest. The impact shuddered through the structure. Before he could recover, a cacophony erupted from outside, tires screeching, heavy boots pounding, and the sharp, authoritative bark of a command. The signal had worked. The door burst inward, splintering wood flying. Thorne, momentarily stunned by the sudden intrusion, froze, his eyes darting between me and the encroaching figures. He knew it was over. The fight drained from him, leaving behind only the hollow shell of a man whose carefully constructed world had just imploded. He raised his hands slowly, defeat etched across his face like an ancient scar. I watched as 2 officers moved in, securing Thorne. The portable money counter, perched on a rough-hewn table in the corner, continued its rhythmic whir-thunk, whir-thunk, a stark counterpoint to the sudden stillness in the room. Stacks of crisp bills, bound with rubber bands, lay beside it, a testament to the illicit wealth being processed. The air, thick with the scent of dust and old paper, now carried the metallic tang of adrenaline and the sharp smell of cleaning solvents from the officer's gear. My gaze swept around the safe house. Crates, some open, others still sealed, lined the walls. Exposed within them were fragments of history. Intricately carved sarcophagus lids, glinting gold funerary masks, scrolls brittle with age, and small, potent idols whose silent eyes seemed to absorb all light. These were the relics I had chased across continents, the pieces of a forgotten legacy that Thorne and the Keepers had systematically plundered. The sheer volume was staggering, a clandestine museum of stolen time. A woman in a dark tactical vest, the lead investigator, approached me, his expression a mix of grim satisfaction and professional exhaustion. "Seth, you timed that perfectly." Her voice was low, devoid of unnecessary emotion. "We've got half a dozen locations already raided. This safe house was the last piece of the puzzle. The intelligence you provided was invaluable." "The anachronisms," I stated, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. They were always there, hidden in plain sight. The careful misdirection, the manufactured provenance. It was all a theatrical performance to protect their true operation. She nodded, her eyes scanning the room. Their legacy was nothing more than a front for a vast, interconnected network of artifact trafficking. They weren't preserving history, Seth. They were selling it, piece by piece, to the highest bidder, using their historical society as a shield. I walked over to an open crate, reaching in to gently touch the cool, smooth surface of a basalt statuette. It was genuine, undeniably ancient, vibrating with the silent stories of millennia. To think it had been destined for a private collection, lost to public knowledge, filled me with a quiet fury. The true extent of the Keeper's operation was laid bare. Not just the single historian's death, but a systematic eradication of inconvenient truths and a calculated exploitation of cultural heritage. The following days were a blur of documentation, interviews, and the careful cataloging of the recovered treasures. Each artifact brought back from the brink of obscurity was a small victory, but the cumulative weight of the case pressed down on me. The emotional toll was undeniable. I had seen how easily history could be rewritten, manipulated, or simply bought and sold. My hands, which had meticulously pieced together bone fragments and analyzed soil samples, now felt strangely empty. The adrenaline had faded, leaving a quiet, persistent ache. Justice, in this context, felt less like a triumphant roar and more like a quiet, steady current against a tide of corruption. This case had changed me. The neat lines of academic forensic anthropology felt insufficient now. I had glimpsed it, and I couldn't unsee it. The thought of returning to the sterile confines of a university laboratory, to isolated bones and quiet studies, felt strangely confining. Perhaps, I mused, staring out at the stark desert landscape, my role was evolving. The world needed more than just academics. It needed investigators willing to confront the uncomfortable truths, to unearth not just bodies, but entire clandestine operations that sought to control the past. The relentless pursuit of justice through science, I understood now, extended far beyond the crime scene tape. It was a commitment to the integrity of human history itself. And I, Seth, was ready to embrace it, whatever dangers it might bring.